Hey guys, I'm Joe, and this is The Rebels Advocate. And today we're going to be talking about the Great Flood. You know the one I'm talking about. No, not that one. Not that one. No, the biblical, the true one, the biblical flood that happened in Genesis. Yeah, I know there's a lot of flood stories in different religions, and I get that. Maybe some of those came before the biblical one, and maybe it looks like, it was kind of a copycat story. But anyway, this is the true one, the rest of them were fake, and that's what we're going to talk about. And I realize that I've talked about the flood a lot for some reason. It's like I'm hung up on it, and I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just marry the flood if you love it so much? But I'm going to talk about it in a little different way. And what better day to talk about the flood than a day when it's raining? It's like I'm tempting God, like, come on, God, you can do better than this. Today, I'm going to talk about it a little different because I've talked about the flood in the past as being, a sign of how evil God is, that he would murder everyone, including little children. I've used the flood in one of my If I Were God videos where I talk about, situations that arise where God has to intervene and do something, and then, we go over how he did it, and then I go over how I would have done it if I was God, and then you can decide who was better, and I win every time. I'm always better than God. But this time, we're going to talk about the flood. Mostly, we're kind of talking about the rainbow, because that's what started my thought process on it. I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I come across one of those memes that you see every couple days where somebody's still butthurt that the gays have stolen the rainbow. Like, how do you steal the rainbow? Like, it's a universal symbol. Anybody can use it. Did Skittles steal the rainbow? Like, I don't hear people arguing about that, but they're arguing about how the gays have stolen the rainbow, and it's time for them to take it back, by golly. And they love this symbol so much because the rainbow is a symbol of God's covenant to man to never murder everybody. Again, I mean, what a beautiful, wonderful, loving symbol that is. So, I mean, if it is going to be if only one person can use the symbol, let's see, a murderous, genocidal maniac using it to promise to never murder everybody all at one time again. Like, he'll murder them by the thousands or millions, but not everybody. Or gay people who just want, to love and be equal to everyone else, have equal rights. Let's give it to the gay people. That's my vote. But anyway, he was going off about it, and it kind of made me think. I started thinking about the rainbow and what it symbolizes, and then that made me start to think about what that means for God. Because I was struck by something funny, because after the flood happened, God did according to the Bible. Like, again, we're talking about this as if it really happened. Kind of the same way I'd talk about something that happened in Harry Potter, even though I've never read those books, but my wife did make me watch all 74 million movies, or however many they were. It was a lot. But anyway, so the flood happened, and after the flood, I think it was like 150 days, they're just floating around until they finally land on a mountain, and then they wait a while, and he sends the bird out, and it comes back with nothing, sends it out again, it comes back with a branch, sends it out again, it don't come back at all. It's like, whew, it's safe to get out. So they get out, and they take some of the extra animals they had, and immediately they start sacrificing those animals to God as a thank you, like, oh, thank you for, not murdering us, us 8 people, while you murdered every single other person, animal, and living thing on the planet. Thank you, God, so much. And so God is floating somewhere up in the clouds because, he had to be fairly close because the smoke actually reached him. Apparently he didn't see this happen. He just was like, oh, he got a whiff of the smoke, and it was really good. And I'd say it does smell good. I've made fun of, the whole sacrifice thing before. But I mean, have you ever been to a barbecue? Like, burning animal flesh does smell pretty good. I mean, You know, I gotta hand it to him. So God's like, you know, he smelled it and it was good, and immediately kind of what he looked at, it was like he was remorseful a little bit, like, oh, because why else would you promise not to do it again? So God sent the rainbow and was like, this is my, you know, covenant to man, that I will never destroy the entire world with water again. I think actually the next time he does it, he said he's going to do it with fire, which is somehow better. But he promised he would never destroy the earth with water again. And he even made a statement in there about, I forget exactly how it was, but something, basically he recognized that man was evil from youth, like basically from the time they're babies, they're evil, and they just can't help it. So, you know, it's kind of weird. It's like, well, isn't that kind of your fault? Like, I mean, you made them. But it's very interesting because sometimes the God in the Bible, the character in this book, isn't the same as the character you hear about in church. The character that you've been taught to believe is infallible, is perfect, is all-knowing, all-loving, all of these things. He's perfect. He's perfection. He knows the future. He knows what you're thinking. He knows every single thing. So it brings up the question, was God incompetent when it come to the flood? Because if the flood, that was his decision, that was his answer to the problem of man being wicked. And so he decided the solution to that was to murder everybody, send a flood. And then it's like immediately after, it's like he realized that didn't work and he was sorry. And then also all we have to do, you know, is ask the question, did it work? And we can like literally flip the page and start reading the Bible right after that. And after we get some more begats and, you know, some repopulation of the earth, we realize, no, it went back to like, it's like nothing changed. We jump right back into the story of men doing evil shit. I think the next big story is the Tower of Babel, when they built the city and tried to build the tower up to heaven so they could see God. And God, like, we've sent rocket ships up there, but somehow these people back in, you know, a few thousand years ago were building with, you know, stones, and he was scared they were going to reach him, I guess. So he destroyed that and then changed everybody's language, mixed it up, and that's why we have all these languages today, or so Christians tell us. But so, yeah, so we can look at the Bible and say it did not work. So that means God made a mistake. Like, it didn't work. What was he trying to teach man, a lesson? It's kind of hard to teach someone a lesson if you murder all of them. You know what I mean? Like, and apparently that lesson didn't work. And if he can see into the future, he should have known ahead of time that this would not work. And yet he did it anyway. He would have literally seen that in the future, he actually sent a rainbow to promise he would never do it again. Yet he did it anyway. I'm sorry, but a perfect, infallible, all-knowing being doesn't make mistakes like that, would have no need to ever apologize for what he did. It seems like maybe he's not so all-knowing after all. It seems like maybe we change God here and there to make him what we want him to be. And by the way, just a side note, completely unrelated, but if you read the Bible, one of the funny things that I love about it is its randomness. And sometimes chapters don't end like they should. Like, it's not a well-written book or well put together book by whoever, you know, afterwards, you know, assigned all the chapters and verses and things. So a lot of times what happens is like they'll have this little extra piece that makes no sense, and they'll just throw it in at the end of a chapter, and it doesn't go along with anything else, and it's kind of weird. Like the very next thing after the flood story, like before you get to the begats and then the Tower of Babel, the very next thing, it talks about how in just 2 or 3 verses, I think, this little story is summed up. But Noah, after the flood, decided to, you know, he had a vineyard, and I guess he decided to start making wine, you know. And so he made some wine, and then one night he got a little too drunk, and he blacked out over in his tent or somewhere, I can't remember, but it was open. And so I guess one of the sons, he had like 3 sons, one of the sons saw him. I can't remember which one now. And it was like, oh Lord, you know. And he goes and tells his other 2 brothers. And so those 2 brothers, they get like a covering, and they carry it like at their shoulder, and they like back up without looking at Noah and like throw it over him, cover him up. Noah gets up, wakes up from his drunken slumber, and he is so pissed. You know how it is, like you get drunk, you do things you regret. You're like, oh God, what did I do last night? You know, that's what happened to Noah, except instead of him being like, oh man, I'm such an idiot, he was like, he got pissed off at the first kid, and I'm not really sure why, like because he didn't cover him up, or because he saw him, or I don't know, but he got ticked at him, and he was proud of the boys that covered him up, so he cursed him. And like in the Bible, you know, like nowadays that means nothing. It's like, okay, you curse me, whatever, I'm moving out, I'm gonna do my own thing. But apparently back then, a father could just curse you, and you would have to live with that curse for the rest of your life, and your kids would have to suffer for it. And it's weird, but that's how things worked back then. But anyway, I thought that was hilarious. That's literally this book that everybody says is the greatest book of all time. It tells the story of the flood, which is one of the biggest stories ever told, and it was only 3 chapters. 3 chapters summed up that whole. And when I say chapters, I'm not talking regular chapters in a book. I'm talking about short Bible chapters, like you can read through it in a couple minutes. And that's it about this biggest thing that, you know, supposedly happened a few thousand years ago, that there is no scientific proof of. And so then to conclude that story, the hero, like the only godly person they could find, like the very next story after the flood is him getting drunk and laid out naked for his family to see. That's hilarious. That's a great book. So anyway, God's kind of stupid, he's incompetent, and I think the flood proves that. The very fact that he would, like, so the rainbow, every time you see the rainbow, realize that is a symbol of God's incompetence. That is a symbol that God doesn't really know what he's doing. Hey guys, what's up? I was just sitting here editing this video, and I had to throw this in. Another thing I find hilarious, I meant to mention in the video and forgot, is the whole flood story happens in Genesis chapter 6. Chapter 6. Genesis is the book that recounts the entire creation and the beginning of time, according to the Bible. And God created everything, and he made it literally 5 chapters before he was like, I gotta destroy everything. How did he not see that coming? I mean, that's just another sign of an incompetent God. Like, he should have saw that coming and prevented it, but he didn't. And anyway, I had to throw that in, sorry. So anyway, that's all I got for now. I'll be back before too long. I promised you guys I'm going to try to be more regular with these videos, and so that's why I'm out here in the rain doing just that. And thanks to all my patrons, and especially the Lux and Heath Shaw. I appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. And all of you. And if you want to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/TheRebelsAdvocate. Thanks so much, guys, and I'm going to get out of the rain now. Can you even tell it's raining? Bye.